Imagine
Huge.
knowing the person who you're talking to, a potential client, their resistance, and you can now guide them into the product and service if that product and service is right for you. So we go through 6 steps that you go through in order to know exactly what to do. And then from there, understand how your saboteur is actually stopping you.
Welcome to the Ken Van Liew Show. Ken Van Liew here, CEO of Global Real Estate Strategies and best-selling author of The Modern Wealth Building Formula. On this show, we talk about anything from raising money to building an extraordinary life, because the Modern Wealth Formula applies to real estate, business, and money. And from that, we create an extraordinary life. So if you have not subscribed to this podcast, please subscribe below and check it out every week, because we have extraordinary guests talking about building modern wealth in your life. Let's go to the show. So I have a very special guest today that I'd like to introduce. You've all heard of Dr. Phil. This is the actual real Dr. Phil, Agrios, business breakthrough specialist, international speaker, and best-selling author. And what Dr. Phil does, and he's my coach, is he helps business people worldwide to literally break through their self-sabotage to self-made success by uncovering their inborn sabotaging trait. And, Dr. Phil was a chiropractor when he started his business and now turned into a business breakthrough specialist. And it just didn't happen overnight. You wrote the best-selling book, Life's One Law. One day you had this epiphany. I know you shared your story a little bit about me, and, we all had our struggles, but I'd love for you to start off by just saying hello and then inspire my guests a little bit about your journey.
Well, thanks so much, Ken. Always a pleasure to see you. And thanks so much for allowing me to talk with your audience. This is great. I'm really excited for you, and you're just doing some awesome stuff. So yeah, as you said, I used to be a chiropractor and a functional medicine practitioner. My specialty was thyroid and autoimmune, the sick of the sickest. And during the process of being in practice for about 35 years, I always wondered why my practice wasn't doing what it was at certain times, or why my kids were doing it, why my patients weren't listening to my instructions and everything else. And I just happened to find myself on this journey, going through a lot of different I call them interesting events that caused me to really focus and to discover a thing called what I call the inborn sabotaging trait. It's actually a hidden sabotaging trait within us that we're born with. It doesn't undermine us, but it actually protects us from the very success that we seek, because if we actually achieve that success, we would then actually be in more pain. So we never get to that point. And when I first found it, I was like, this is way too simple. There's no way. So I went out to try to disprove it. And over 30 years of thousands upon thousands of people, I couldn't. And I actually found a way to switch it off instantly, and it works 100% of the time. Now, you and I are from Jersey, right? You tell me this works 100% of the time, we're going to do what? BS, right? I'm going to call you out. So I knew that, and my reputation being very important to me, I was like, no way. So I went to try to disprove that. And to this day, whether you are a child or a multi-billionaire, it always comes down to that you have this saboteur trait that protects you. And then once you use the antidote, it will allow you to go into growth immediately. Guaranteed, works 100% of the time.
Dr. Phil, maybe we can break it down a little bit, because if I'm not mistaken, I'm a supplier saboteur, right?
Right.
So, we've talked a lot about that. I sometimes devalue myself, devalue others. There's a couple traits. There's actually 3 traits, right? But you mentioned something that, even though it's called a sabotaging trait, I just heard you say that this actually protects you. Can you tell us a little bit about, how that works?
Yeah. See, when you start to release your personal professional power and you start to feel uncomfortable, that saboteur kicks in to protect you. You're nothing wrong with you. You're not an idiot, or the thousands of words we use for ourselves. You just went into protection, because there's only 2 things we do. We protect, we grow, we expand, we contract, we give and take. We're vibrational beings. So when you go into, when you start to feel that your personal or your business is going south, that saboteur will kick in to protect you. It's trying to get you through the situation that you're going through. And when you understand, you go like this, you go into that contracted state. But imagine knowing why you're going into that contraction, knowing the saboteur. But you won't go all the way down. You may contract a little bit, and then by using the antidote, you now go into growth phase. So you're kind of doing this now instead of going through the hamster wheel doing this. And the reason why we call it the antidote, this one sentence solution, is because I thought about it. I'm like, Ken, if you're if you were bitten by a venomous snake and you're about to die, do you want the antidote or something that might work? Right? You want the antidote.
Obviously, the
right?
antidote.
Yeah. So I thought about this. So if I'm in a personal or professional downward spin, do I want the antidote or something that might work? Let's try to figure this out as I'm going through this downward spin. And I realized, and that's why we use the antidote, because it does work 100% of the time. So when you use your antidote, it's actually impossible to use the saboteur, because the antidote and the saboteur are the exact opposite to each other.
Interesting. And, I know we had some in-depth conversations, and I may be going off a little track, so keep me on track here. But one time we spoke a little bit about, there being actually 6 different seasons, and how, people during certain seasons should actually focus on regaining energy, or then in other seasons, they're actually, pouring out the energy toward working toward their goals. And it's always fascinated me. And I'm not speaking that intelligently. I should be a better student.
Oh,
no.
But yeah. Well, again, there's actually, we really don't, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because it makes it confusing, but I just want to, just since you opened it up, I was able to discover 6 steps that nature uses to come back from her storms. And I found out there's actually 6 steps within us, and I call it nature's blueprint for repeatable success. And once you use those 6 steps, you can solve any business or personal problem. But out of that blueprint, I was able to discover that there are actually 3 basic principles of the universe, where these 3 principles govern the atoms to the galaxies, but they govern us. And I thought, well, the only thing that governs us are traits. So I just said, instead of 3 principles, I just turned it to 3 traits. So there's basically just 3 traits: the director trait, the supplier trait, and the communicator trait. So your audience, write that down. Write down director trait, communicator trait, and supplier trait. Now, those 3 traits are all within us. They make up who we are. And during the process, I was able to discover that they're actually a sequence, right? And I call it the personality stress sequence. You can write down the personality stress sequence. So that sequence has 3 traits, and they're placed in positions called the dominant trait, which is your superpower. Then think about a seesaw, right? The lighter child's up top, right? So that's your dominant trait. That's your superpower. Then the media trait is the fulcrum of the seesaw, and the saboteur is let's say more the heavier child, right? More the end of it. So the one's up top, the other one's on the bottom. Now, because of that sequence, we're able to discover there's only 6 basic sequences of human behavior. So there's really only 6 people in the world. And this works great for people who are in, whether they're real estate or they do speaking and all that. When they're speaking to people, imagine knowing that other person's sequence. You'll know exactly why they're resistant and how you can shift and guide them into, let's say, a investor, how to help them to invest in your properties. Or somebody that may be a partner, you'll understand why your partner's not doing, or maybe you have hiring a contractor, they're not doing what they're doing. You can now figure out how all that relates to what their sequence is, because they're protecting themselves as much as you are. So we had a coach one time I have a 5-week live group coaching course called Transcendence 101, from self-sabotage to self-made success. And her relationship with her husband wasn't doing that great. When she took the course, she understood her sequence, but then she also understood his, and the relationship really grew, but he never knew she was taking the course. So we show people how to shift others by shifting themselves. So again, there's only 6 sequences based out of 3 traits within you. So we can actually go through each of the trait to see if people can identify their own hidden sabotage trait, if that's what you want to do.
Interesting. I'd like to, I think it's important, Can you segue and tell me how a business can thrive and profit, by following this method, and how it, obviously you're a business specialist,
Right.
utilizing this method. So, and you've spoke mostly, on how it's related to the personal level. And
Hmm.
maybe if you could segue into how, businesses could thrive, that would be really valuable for my guests.
Sure, absolutely. So Transcendence 101 is about you. It's 5 weeks diving into you because you have to deal with you. Everything outside of you is you. Right. So the person you can't stand is a part of you you can't stand. They're just showing up to show you what you're not dealing with. Okay. And we show that consistently every day with all my clients. So if you want
Yeah.
your outside world to change, you must change you first. And by shifting your energy within you, then what has to happen, two things happen. The people that now are reinforcing that negative energy have to leave, or they shift in order to stay in your new world with your new energy. Now
Mm.
we have a Transcendence 201, achieving excellence in business and in life. That's our business course of 3 months. So what we do show people is that your own business has its own
Mm.
inborn sabotage and trait and antidote.
And
So
and I guess I didn't mean to interrupt,
no,
doctor,
of
but this
course.
not only applies for people that are in their own business. It's literally any person that's in a business or working for a company, right? They
Yeah,
could be,
career, their professional life.
they could be in their own way, and I think I heard you say, you kind of have to take care of yourself, boost your own productivity, then it trickles into the business. Is that what
Yeah.
I'm hearing? You
Yeah,
connect the dots here?
even my own wife, when we first met, she's called a communicator saboteur, which we'll talk about. And she didn't express herself and she wasn't getting promoted. And the reason why she wasn't promoting, because she wasn't expressing her brilliance. And the reason why she wasn't expressing her brilliance, because she didn't want to feel stupid or embarrassed and other things. So there's other things, each spheres for each of the saboteur. But when she started to realize she started to need to express herself, which was very uncomfortable, as she started to do that, things started to shift in her life. Now, even though her business, her boss still wasn't going to promote her because there was a lot of, inside, in corporate, there's a lot of stuff there.
Politics. Yeah.
Politics. She actually
Yeah.
disconnected from that business into another business, another corporation, and then from there moved up, and she was able to get promoted that way, because until she found a great company that we saw her value, and because of her expressing and managing, she's making more money than she's ever made before, because she started to use her antidote a few years ago, and for me to help her through that, to the point that she even actually spoke in front of 100 people, which would have
Wow.
never ever happened. So you
Wow.
can do, whether it's your career or it's your business. Imagine understanding your coworkers. Imagine if you're a
Mm.
manager. She's a manager, and she'll come to me and give me some thoughts about certain of her the people that are under her, and I'll say, well, that person's a direct saboteur. Blah blah blah. She was like, okay, and then she would do exactly what I tell her to do, and then all of a sudden the conflict would stop, and the person would then become more productive. So we actually show people how to take
Wow.
low performing employees and make them high performers within like less than two weeks.
Wow. So it was literally changing the energy within that then just gravitated what you want. I guess so what I'm hearing is a manager, an employee, a business owner could increase their performance like instantaneously by getting involved in the transcendence programs and then going down and learning more skill sets to take to wherever level they really want, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to realize your business and your professional and your personal life are one. So when you use your
Yeah.
saboteur, both are affected. But when you use your antidote,
Mm.
both are affected at the same time. We've seen people
Sure.
shift within an hour, hour and a half, because the situations or challenges were able to be handled. But there are things that are embedded and may take a while, but as a person stays consistent with their antidote, because they're going from a protective state into a growth phase. When you go into growth phase, you
Right.
have to open up, you have to do things. So you're going to be a little more vulnerable. But if you feel within your mind, body, and self that you feel good, and that's what the antidote allows you to do, then you can move forward. And as soon as you hit that uncomfortable part, you'll contract, knowing that you're contracting, say, this is okay, it's expected, and then go into what you need to do to continue the growth.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you where I'm leading to, but
Sure.
I'm also going to ask. So I understand that, we're talking about, self-confidence, esteem, making a difference on the job. Now, how does this work for people that are like literally trying to make a living off commissions, right? Where they need to have a closing rate or something. And, touch upon that first, and then
Oh yeah,
I got
great question.
another good question for you. Another good
Yeah.
question for you.
So
After that.
we have a system called a sales, it's called the explosive sales blueprint. Have them say yes before you ask for the sale. Your saboteur, when you actually try to close and you don't close, it's actually stopping you from closing because it's more painful to close that person. Imagine knowing the person who you're talking to, a potential client, their resistance, and you can now guide them into the product and service if that product and service is right for you. So we go through 6 steps that you go through in order to know exactly what to do. And then from there, understand how your saboteur is actually stopping you. We've had people within 2 weeks go from very little to $86,000 in sales, where they were able to do that. Now, how's that happen? We had a doctor had less than 30% closing rate. Within a couple of weeks, he went to 100%, which I didn't believe him. I wanted to really see the numbers. Why was that happening? So let's talk about that sequence. So let's say in that sequence, your dominant trait is what's called a communicator. You love to communicate. You're great, but have you ever talked yourself out of a sale? Okay. You probably know people that have done that. Why? Because they're overly communicating. So what does the manager usually tell the person they need? They need communicative training, how to communicate. And I go, no, that's the last thing they need. What they really need is to focus on their dominant, their antidote. So for some reason, so we look at the seesaw with my hand. So the communicator's coming in and talking. The reason why they're talking is because if they're what's called a director saboteur, they're scattered, they're all over the place. So they're going to use their communication to try to get their point across. If they're a supplier saboteur, they don't feel value. So they're going to use their communication to show the person how valuable they are. A lot of those people will give things away for free because they want to show how valuable it is. But what happens is they actually are devaluing their service. So as soon as they use their antidote, their communicator dominant becomes more effective, and immediately their communication becomes effective, and they can start selling, especially when they understand the blueprint.
Wow. That could be, I would say in all of those instances, pretty earth shattering for someone's business and career. And I guess, like a lot of people, in today's world, they want enough, but they're really looking for happiness. So how does this all relate to someone kind of feeling good about themselves and creating an extraordinary life? Putting, because my philosophy is, we work hard, but we got to play hard. So,
right.
So tell
Another
me,
great question. Great
yeah.
question. So here's the thing. You ever see the domino masters? They set this whole thing up and they push this one domino and goes, last thing hits. And let's say balloons are
I
released.
can never get to the setup. I always hit it and mess it up.
I feel your pain. I feel your pain. So when the balloons release, what's the last thing you see? The balloons, right? Well, that's your imposter syndrome, your anxiety, your depression, your stuckness, or anything that you're feeling, you're overthinking. That's what you see and feel what? Last. So what do? We take our coping methods and do what? We put them on the balloons, not the one domino. The domino is your saboteur. And what we prove to you is that saboteur creates all your negative emotions, every one of them, just this one thing. So what we do is we focus on all what we feel last instead of dealing with what the root cause was. And as soon as you click on that saboteur, you go down the road of frustration. But when you click on the antidote, you go down the road of inspiration and motivation. And then during the course, in addition to that, we actually give people one subconscious word that they use that stops all of their goals. This one subconscious word stopped it in the past, they're stopping it now, and they're stopping their goals for the rest of their life. Might be a good word to know. Once they understand that one word, we give them 5 steps to offset that one word so they have to achieve their goals. We prove that to them as well. So you have to realize that everything that you're feeling last is not what you need to focus on. It's what's the one cause. And once you understand that, that's when the breakthrough happens.
Got it. So, I think, we touched upon, 3 types of, business people, the people that are in their own business, people that are working, people that want to go into business, people that just want to create an extraordinary life. So, it definitely sounds like the success rate is phenomenal. And my question is then, from what I recall, because, I figured out my sabotaging trait once upon a time, how does someone get started? Maybe what are the first 3 steps? I remember there being a sabotaging quiz that maybe,
Yes.
people like taking quizzes. If they don't like to take the quiz, I know you do some strategy sessions, and, some people are audible versus visual, but, how do people get in touch? How do people start the process of keeping it simple? Like you said, just it's 3 traits: understanding the way they fire, understanding things are happening for you, not to you, and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah. Well, you said something before I go into that. If I may just say one thing,
Sure.
you
Sure.
never get rid of your saboteur. It is
Mm,
always with you. You never get rid of it. Why? Because it allows you to what? It gives you the ability to evolve. See, when you start to release and you get that point where you feel uncomfortable, you're ready to evolve. But because it's
yeah.
too painful, you go into protection. So it's always there
Mm,
for you. We just show you how to take advantage of that. So how did you do that? We have a 9-question quiz that everybody has to take because it
right.
gives them their hidden sabotage and trait and antidote for free. So that's
Yes.
it. You can get your saboteur. You'll understand what you do. Now you got to realize, please read the instructions. That's one of the, usually a director saboteur will just start taking it. Read the instructions because you want to take it when you were a kid or a teenager. Why? Because a lot of psychologists or coaches, whatever, who've gone through a lot of work will answer it as of today, which is most
Mm,
likely they're using their antidote. And that's why a lot of times the quiz won't come out proper. They answer it as they
mm,
were before. Then they'll go,
right.
oh, I used to do that. And I go, yeah, you still do it though. You may not use it 90% of the time, but if you're not using your saboteur, you're not going into protection, then you're not advancing. You're not taking calculated risk or things like that. You're not evolving. You're just playing things safe, right? So once they understand that, we give them the one solution. So now we're doing it just for the next about a month or so, probably nothing more. We're now doing one-on-one 30-minute. Bring me one business or professional challenge. Excuse me, one professional or personal challenge. I'll show you how your saboteur actually created it, and then help you to start solving it immediately with the antidote. So that's what they do. So they can go to sabquiz.com, SAB, short for sabotage. So sabquiz.com, put it into the URL. Don't put it into Google because it won't come up. You got to go into the URL. Put sabquiz.com. Then you come to it, and at the results page, you'll have an opportunity to click on for a 30-minute consult. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. I'm going to show you how to do that, but I'll show you how our Transcendence 101 will do that. And if it's right for you, great. If it's not, I'll tell you that as well.
Mm, that's awesome. And, are you, I know you're doing all kinds of things. You have the antidote to self-sabotage, the master your inner saboteur. You had the book. So what's the latest and greatest besides all these programs? Is there a website, or you just suggest everybody do the quiz first and then reach out to you
Yeah, if they
just so we
want to
can give
do
them
the
a
web,
direct source?
they can go to a website. They can go to Dr. Agrios. So it's DRAGRIOS.com. They can look at this. It's just a regular website. They can take the quiz from there as well. But the side
Okay.
quiz just gets them right to the quiz. And then from there, they can come talk to me. If not, we're going to start doing some live webinars later on instead of the one-on-ones. We did the one-on-ones because we were doing some research, looking at certain things. And now we have the
Yeah.
research, and now we're moving forward with that. But yeah, we're going to be, so that those are the things that we do. We go from the one-on-one. If people want to do the 201, great. And then we have a mastermind. And then we also have online courses. They can go to the website and look on them. I have a course called Rise Above Adversity. It'll help you get through any adversity. I give you 5 techniques. You learn your saboteur, but you don't learn the other 2 traits, which is the saboteur. So you can do that. So there's some men, you can read the book. There's many things they can do. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram and other things as well.
Is there also a link, bookwithdrphil.com, that they could use? Is that something, is that a link that they can use, Book with Dr. Phil? Or
Yeah, they can go to bookwithdrphil.com. That can take them directly to the calendar. They can make an appointment. And then from there, they'll get the ability to take the quiz, they'll see testimonials from a lot of testimonials from startups to multimillionaires that have taken the course and then have gotten tremendous success out of it. And then there's a couple of videos that they can look into about my story and how I became where I was and go from there.
So it sounds like either way they're going to get to you, which is perfect. Either they take the quiz first or hit the booking link and then take the quiz.
Absolutely.
So beautiful. So, why don't you just leave everybody, and I really appreciate it. I think everybody's got it. dragrios.com and sabquiz.com. Just leave us with some words of wisdom like you give me once a week.
So what I'd like you to do is, for those of you who are, especially those of you going a lot of stress, I just want you to just say, it's okay. Just say, everybody just say, you too, Cam, it's okay. Just say, it's okay.
It's okay, baby.
Yeah. As you say, it's okay. It just kind of resets you. It's kind of like, all right, I'm just where I'm at. I'm just in protection. That's all I am. There's nothing wrong. I'm not a loser and all the other words. I'm just in protection. Why am I in protection? And then know that you are there because of your saboteur. You were born with this. And once you can really understand what this is, then know that you have an antidote to switch it off instantly and move forward into growth. So just know that it is there within you. Just access it. If you want to just go to sabquiz.com and get it, that's fantastic. You want to go a little further and go much, much deeper into stuff that no one else is teaching. And this is true. If you want to learn something totally different, this is what I have. No one else is teaching it.
So, Dr. Phil, thank you so much. And if I haven't mentioned, I met Dr. Phil in Jack Canfield's living room, and within 5 minutes, he instantly told my wife and I what our sabotaging trait was. My wife looked at me and said, does this guy have a camera in my house? So I just want you to know that. And then he was a Jersey boy, and we connected and we're good friends. And it's just my pleasure to have you on, Dr. Phil. Thank you so much. Always.
Thank you.
And we will be talking to you soon. Make it a great day.
Man. You too, as well. I hope this was valuable for everybody on your call.
It was awesome. As always. Thank you.
Thanks.
My special guest, I want to thank you for listening today. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please take a moment. Subscribe to the Ken Van Liew Show. Put modern wealth in your life. Come next week. Keep coming. It's going to make a huge difference. I really want to thank you for listening. As always, make it a great day.